Good afternoon and welcome to Leica Conversations. My name is Ray Olson, product specialist and academy instructor for Leica Camera USA. Today we're going to be speaking with an artist and photographer that dances the delicate line between commercial and personal work. Adam Lerner is an artist and advertising photographer who works with brands, agencies, creative teams to develop visual content. Adam specializes in a variety of photographic styles, including lifestyle photography, automotive photography, which is part of what we're talking about today, editorial photography, and Adam's ability to understand a brand's vision and translate into stunning visual content has made him really a go-to photographer for many businesses. After fulfilling his boyhood dream of playing at New York City's CBGB, he toured the country with his band while taking pictures with his dad's old Pentax film camera and creating a passion for translating music into photography. I'm really very, very happy to introduce to you Adam Lerner. Adam, how you doing?
Hey, Ray, great to see
All
you.
right. Good to see you too.
It's a pleasure to be here, and thanks for that incredible introduction.
You're welcome. Good stuff. You've got beautiful work, so we're going to delve into some of that. I think we're going to start maybe with a little bit of your commercial work.
Excellent. So what can I tell you about these photos?
Somebody hired you to shoot these. Guaranteed, right?
Yes, exactly. I think that automotive is probably like it started off as just kind of a passion. But while I shoot automotive, I also have commercial assignments, and the three photos that just kind of came through.
Mhm.
One was for Discover Student Loans, another was for John Deere. This is the Discover, that's John Deere for Walmart. Um, and another one was for Triangle Manufacturing. Um, these are all, agency assignments, advertising kind of work. And it's stuff that I really love. I mean, I love, producing and setting up these shots and kind of taking my vision both aesthetically, creatively, and even with just lighting. I mean, lighting to me is like one of the most critical aspects of photography, my photography. And interestingly, at an early point in my photography career, I realized that like as a musician, photography and music kind of make sense because they're both kind of like sub languages that we kind of see the world through or hear the world through. But the properties of music and the properties of light, I think, have similar characteristics. And I'm not going to get into the whole kind of spiel on that right now because it's a little bit heady, but it's a way that my mind kind of was able to visualize how light kind of falls off, and similar how sound does the same kind of a thing. Yeah, this is some editorial work that I did. Somebody for Peloton, and for me, location is critical. I think that that's so important for any type of photography that you're doing. And even if your client just says, we've got this space, whatever, I'm always one to say, well, that's nice, but what else you got? Because I want to know what my options are. And I feel like the same thing is true with automotive photography, is that sometimes, a car isn't like a person. You can't just say like, hey, let's walk over here. But if you do have the ability, it is nice. This
How
was
did
a,
you get? Let me just
good.
ask you real quick. How'd you get started shooting cars?
It was just an organic thing, just through my passion of shooting cars. And there was, some local people around here that had some incredible cars. And I just started shooting them. And then bring a trailer became like a huge deal.
Okay.
And a lot of, people that I was friends with started, getting into the whole bring a trailer thing. And I got the opportunity to shoot some cars that I would have never had, a chance to even go near. And for example, like which led me to this assignment that we're looking at right now, that this was Ralph Lauren's private collection, and I got to spend the day there for Auto Week magazine. And this was actually my first foray into like commercial Leica photography. At the time, this was, I was Leica curious, and I bought a Leica Q, and I brought it along on this commercial shoot. And I pulled it out for this photo, and I was just like blown away when I saw, what it was capable of doing, the resolution, and but the organic nature, like everyone's like sharpness, sharpness, sharpness. And I think sharpness is overrated. It's like I like sharpness in a photo, but I don't like photos that are clinically sharp. And that Summilux, that little, 28 1.7 on that full frame sensor, I mean, it just blew my mind as to the kind of level of detail that you're able to get without it being over sharp. And the color, obviously, no distortion. I mean, it just blew my mind. So from that point forward, I kind of started my Leica journey.
Was this one of your first shots with a Leica camera? First time you really got a Leica camera and started taking some pictures with it?
I would say that this was probably the first time I used it commercially.
Okay,
And this was very soon after I got the camera. I always liked having like kind of like a high quality professional compact camera with me at all times. And it just was a natural progression for me to just have this in my bag. And just having the ability to have something so small and so stealthy. There was times when I was climbing up on ladders and doing all kinds of stuff because we had such a short timeline for the shoot. And I just found that the Q
sure.
was so incredibly versatile and
Let me
so
uh,
capable.
let me just jump back for a second and see, like,
Sure.
how did you get started in photography? Was it through music and what you were doing on the road?
It's interesting. My dad was an amateur photographer. He did beautiful photography, shot film. And when I went to college, I decided that in addition to what I was studying, my coursework, I was like, I would really love to study photography. So I got an art major with a concentration of photography, had my own darkroom, did all of my own processing, and I was using my dad's old Pentax film camera. And I just had an absolute love and a passion for it. And I was going out to clubs and shooting bands. So at the same time, I was playing music in like 5 different bands, but I was also going out and shooting music and shooting a lot of my friends. And it was just kind of like a free form, alternative way of expression. And yeah.
You still working in film currently?
Oh, absolutely. It's interesting because, there was a period of time when a lot of us transitioned from film to digital. And then there was a certain point, I think around like 2011 or so, 2012, where film kind of had like a bit of a resurgence. And I definitely, got back into shooting then. And I think I took a little bit of a break from it. And then in the last like 3 or 4 years, I've really been shooting with a passion. And my go-to is a Leica MP. I absolutely love it. I got it right over here. This guy. It's nicely worn and
There you go.
weathered. Um, and
Nice. Yeah.
yeah, this is like, if I could just have one film camera, it would be that camera. I absolutely love it. I love everything about it. I love the way it feels. And the viewfinder is incredible, the rangefinder. So yeah, that's like my go-to. I pretty much, for all my personal work, I pretty much shoot film. And even if I'm on a commercial shoot, that camera is always in my bag because
Try,
there's
yeah, try to
times
work
if
it
I
in. Yeah.
absolutely, you know, or if there's something else I want to shoot while I'm there, why not? I have the film camera.
Is your first love artistically music? Is that where it
I would
really?
say my first language artistically is music.
Okay.
I'd say
All
I'm,
right.
I'm probably a far more organic guitar player than photographer. I feel like both of these things, are things that I really kind of like identify with and are
Yep.
so part of my DNA. But I would say like with guitar, it's like just kind of a natural ability. I'm not a virtuoso by any standard, but I realized at an early age that I could literally just hear something and then start playing it, or just kind of like noodle it right out of my hands. And I was like, wow, that's crazy. But one of the things that I find that, with guitar and with photography, and the reason why I stay with photography and the reason why I'm so compelled to do it is because I feel like it's like an endless pursuit in that no matter how good you get or how competent you feel, the pursuit of bettering yourself and learning and making new discoveries, it's endless. And I find that to be really refreshing. It was the same reason why I stuck with playing guitar, because you never really kind of plateau. Or if you plateau, it's time to move on to something else, perhaps. But that's one of the things I love about photography is that I'm constantly unlocking new things, learning new things. Doesn't mean that I hit roadblocks and I have points where like I get frustrated, But I think that that's even one of the reasons why I'm shooting a lot more film lately, because I'm kind of going back to my roots and going back to, those types of images that really inform things. Because I feel like with digital, it's so easy just to kind of take your camera, hit the shutter button and get a lot of frames. Whereas, when you shoot with film, you slow your workflow down, you're more mindful.
So was it guitars first, cars, and then cameras, or what order would we have? We got a whole show on guitars and cars,
Oh man,
cameras.
I mean, I was like a car nut, as a kid. I was like one of those kids that could just like be like, oh, that's this car and that's this car. And I was, and I definitely think again, it's like, family DNA. I think that it's like, kind of a thing that like my dad was really into cars and I was really into cars. And so I picked up on a lot of those things. He was not a musician. And he didn't
Okay,
have any of those musical abilities. He was
that
a
played the
huge
radio.
he was a fan of music. He played air guitar and he had like
All
a
right,
little conductor's
all right,
wands and
cool.
all that kind of stuff. But yeah, the music thing just like it just hit me one day. And I think I even found like at some point, like from like first grade, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And it was like singer. Singing is not my forte. It's more guitar playing, but still, I knew that I wanted to play music.
Very cool.
Yeah.
What was that car? There we go. There's that car again. What is
Well,
that beauty?
this is a DB5 Aston Martin. It's kind of like a incredibly rare collectible. And for this shoot, I knew that we had to, location was everything. So half of the job I feel with, photography is preparation, especially when you're going to be doing something like this, where you have a vehicle like this for a limited amount of time. It's like unbelievably precious. So you have to figure out your location, the logistics of getting to and from that location, the time of day, and a lot of what I do is I do a lot of location scouting. I have like a list of different places. Same thing true with this. Who would take a 67 Ferrari and drive it in the snow? I mean, it's just absolutely mental, but it does, provide a very aspirational look. And it is something that's like, just it's just different. And I think that that's kind of what I strive for. It's like, I don't want to just take the hero shot of the car. Like, yes, you do want to take the hero shot of the car, but then you also want the aspirational stuff, the stuff that tells a story. Um, Using, foreground elements, using some backlight, just things to kind of like elevate the car, give it a little bit more of an ethereal kind of a feeling. Even just the positioning of the car, kind of gives it a more muscular. I mean, this is a teeny weeny little car. Like an adult human sitting in this car looks like a giant. But if you get down and you kind of give it the right stance, it gives it a more muscular kind of look. And it's,
Yeah.
it's a sports car. It's meant to be driven sporty.
How are you getting access to these cars? These friends' cars, or
It's a whole bunch of different things. It's friends, it's people in my car club, it's some of the clients that I've had through different for different reasons, whether it was commercially or it was for folks that wanted to sell cars. This is another example. A friend of mine's got a grass strip airport, and I just called him up and I said, "Hey, do you mind if we shoot a car there?" And he's like, "Yeah, as long as you come first thing in the morning." And literally the light had just broke. It was foggy. And we got a few shots in before the airport became active. So it's another one of those location deals where it's like, I also try not to reuse locations too much, because you don't want your portfolio to just look like you're shooting the same thing in the same place again and again.
right? Do you have a go-to kit for a shot like this?
Um, for me, it's like if I could take one camera out with me and one lens, it would be M10R and Noctilux. This is like kind of like, you know, this is like honestly, this is my favorite digital setup that I've ever owned, and my favorite lens that I've ever had. And I love that. But I also use the SL2 for a lot of stuff. And I find that the SL2 just has like a beautiful sensor. The color is really great. It has a really organic look. I absolutely love like the original SL lenses. So I've got an original SL50 Summilux and the 24 to 90. And I find that those are great lenses because in some cases, you want to have the versatility like with the 2490. And, as you've heard some people say, like 2490 is like a prime at all focal lens because it just renders so beautifully.
It does,
So
yeah.
in a situation
Yeah.
like this, like, this plane was actually taxiing over to go to the runway. So this was kind of just like a split moment. And I just got lucky that, it just happened to be like perfectly framed with the car. I mean, it's just, so with the SL, I was able to get that decisive moment. If I was trying to do this with the M10R and the Noctilux, I think I would have been sitting there like trying to get critical focus. And
Might be
I
a
mean,
little
that's the thing
tougher.
that I mean, that's the thing I love about the Noctilux and using rangefinders is that it does force you to be more mindful and slow things down. Like this shot
Right.
below, this is the 10R, this is the Noctilux. It just, the colors, the background. I mean, I love everything about the look that I get from that combination. And so it just kind of melts things away. You've got beautiful compression. And of course, the 10R is just, I love that sensor. I think it's like if you took,
It's special. Yeah, I agree.
it's a really special sensor. I feel like it has like some kind of color elements of like the original M9, which CCD sensor. This was with the MP. This is film, and
Adam, excuse me a moment. I wanted to let folks in the Zoom conversation let them know that if they want to put some questions in the FAQs in the chat, we're going to look at those and they'll feed them through to us towards the end of the program. So if we have some time, we can go through some questions. So I
sure.
just want to let people know that.
This
Sorry
is
about that.
again the MP, black and white film, of course. I think this was with the 50 Summilux.
That's gorgeous.
And the thing about this that I love, like this is one of my favorite shots, is because all I did, like sometimes I love to get that low angle, but I stood up this time and I'm like, oh, look at how nice it looks down this little dirt road. And the thing that's so great is that the fall off in the rendering with Leica glass is like unlike anything else. You've got the three-dimensionality of the vehicle, you've got the four corners. I like shooting cars at 50 millimeters because they look proportional, but then the background just melts away, but you still get the context. You still want to just jump in that thing and just, go scooting down the road.
Right. Your focus point is still at the car. The rest of it is just adding to the emotion of the shot. You
And the
know, it's
story. Yeah.
and the story. It's what we call the part of the like a look is all about these elements, micro contrasts and fall offs and things like that that we just take for granted sometimes. And you start looking at your pictures over the years and you go, oh wow, cool. That's why I use these.
100%. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and I also love adapting M glass to the SL. Um, I find that that's also, a beautiful look because the M lenses render differently on the SL than the SL lenses.
Right.
And as far as the micro contrast and the fall off and whatnot. Um, yeah. And
On top
again,
of that, the SL cameras will give you in-body stabilization with M lenses or even R lenses.
oh, that
That's
electronic
cool.
jargon.
Yes, we don't need it, but it's there.
No, and to be perfectly honest, like there's times when you really want critical focus and having focus peaking and that incredibly huge bright EVF,
Yep.
it just makes it allows the gear to kind of get out of your way so you can just focus on the task at hand.
Yeah.
And I love that about a lot of the Leica gear because it's like elegant simplicity. The menus aren't complicated. You can kind of set it and forget it.
When we were looking at these last series of pictures, I mean, you're thinking about a story when you're photographing these images. This in particular, or a couple of the ones before that, is a part of a story, or these just snippets from a story?
A lot of what we're seeing here is just kind of like a composite of like, different little snippets from different photo stories. But I think that, when you're shooting lifestyle photography or lifestyle automotive photography, you want a story, you want there to be a narrative, you want there to be something more than just the car being featured. And whether you're using whether you're using elements like, the framing of this or the model, or in this case, like backlit,
And film.
like
That looks like film to me.
that is film.
That's singing film.
Yes, that is definitely film. And you know, that's it's like I know that people try to emulate film with presets and you can approximate it, but there's really just nothing that comes close to the look of film and the feel of film.
Right. The
Because there's
palette's
just
built into it. Yeah.
yeah, this also is film. Um, you know, I just to me, like I love the look of film. I love like the density of film. I love the grain. And then shooting, you know, with Leica glass, you get such an incredible amount of detail and micro contrast. But again, it's not clinical. You know, it's sharp, but it's not clinical. So, you know, it's still you're still able to kind of capture that and tell your
Sure.
story. Yep, this was just another kind of a lifestyle shot. M10R, and I think this was the Noctilux. I think so. This is actually completely artificially lit. The shoot was originally meant to happen outside. The weather turned out to be incredibly rancid, and I wanted to try to emulate the look of like, you know, afternoon light pouring in.
Right.
Um,
For 10K outside the window.
well, it was raining so badly that I actually had it like at where the window would have been. So the light was inside, but I
Are
was
these
able to,
personal shots? Are these are personal?
this particular one, yeah, and the one previously
Okay.
were personal, yeah. You know, oftentimes I will, you know, do a model test with somebody, kind of see how we work together, and then maybe from there do kind of a conceptual shoot, which is the shoot, you know, the shot below. And then if we have a good rapport, then I know that I can like actually hire that person for commercial stuff. You don't always get that opportunity, but sometimes when you get introduced to somebody that says they model, you know, you want to kind of see how the two of you work together.
This does
So,
not look like perfectly natural light.
I mean, this
We'd
is
love it to be like that, but
it's really just a three light setup. It's
yeah.
really, you know, it's simple lighting, simple camera positioning. For me, it's like, you know, I like simplicity. I mean, obviously, this isn't that simple because it is a three light setup. You know, I'm shooting on a tripod, I'm tethered. You know, there's a lot of elements going on in here, but it's not something that you know is overly complicated. That
Do
is,
you
I guess the most
frequently use artificial light as opposed to available light or natural
well,
light, let's say?
it really honestly depends on what I'm doing. Like, you know,
Yeah.
this is natural
Okay.
light, but in a situation like that, when I was in like a dingy, dirty warehouse that had like horrible overhead lighting, um,
It
that
looks
not
pretty good
only
for a
like,
dirty, dingy warehouse.
well, thank you. You know, with crappy lighting, um, you also get like terrible color temperatures. You know, with cars, you know, you want the colors to look nice, and you also get reflections of the lighting in the cars because cars are just like giant reflectors. You know, they basically reflect back anything that you're doing in front of it.
Yeah. You get any tips on controlling reflections?
Well, you know, sometimes if you do a lower camera angle, that's one way to do it. If you kind of like change your angle, um, change the angle of your lighting, change the angle of you personally, using a polarizing filter is always an excellent option. Um, and you know, you can use like, you know, bounce cards, you can use all different kinds of, you know, tools as well to kind of mitigate reflections. So sky's the limit. Just depends on how much time you got.
Get no reflections here. You're pretty lucky. A
Well, there's a little bit there, but you know, again,
little bit, yeah.
this was
Not too much.
film. But you know, if you see like the two angles, you know, the angle of the car is kind of going one way, the door is going another way. So they're kind of 45ing into the center, and both of which are not necessarily reflecting back at me because I'm kind of standing in the middle. So
Right.
maybe a fortuitous position. Again, more film. You know, I just feel like if you're going to shoot a vintage race, you've got to shoot vintage race cars and race car drivers on film.
This looks like a commercial shoot.
Yeah, this was for Polestar. They gave me a car for the day and they just said, okay, take pictures in New York City. And I was like, Well, I'm going to go a little bit further than that. And I ended up hiring two friends, one of whom who drove a car where we had a camera mounted, another one who actually drove the Polestar. So I actually didn't get a lot of seat time in the car. I did do some shots all over the city. And I had all these locations picked out, but the driving part I thought was really cool. And, I feel like that's, again, like one of those things where if the treatment tells you that they want you to do A, B, and C, why not think of D, E, and F? Why not come up with a few other things that are going to differentiate
Sure.
your stuff from somebody else? And fortunately, everything came together. And,
And are you doing primarily stills right now, or are you doing video as well? You do a little bit of
stills, this was
motion?
purely
Still
stills.
only? Okay.
Yeah. Just, SL on a camera mount on the back of
It's a
a
nice
car.
rolling shot. Yeah, it's a really pretty
And I'm
rolling
just like,
shot.
please don't fall off the car.
That'd be bad. We don't want that.
Yeah. Well, New York City's roads are not that great. There's a lot of potholes, there's a lot of bumps. So, you know,
What
but
lens was this? This is speaking to me.
that's the Noctilux
Ah, there we go.
go-to. And I'm a sucker for lens flare. I absolutely love lens flare. I love stuff that's backlit. Especially in a situation like this, being able to utilize uh, the foliage, which kind of just becomes like bokeh out like crazy. You add that with the lens flare, and I just love the look of that kind of stuff. And I feel like
This
the flare you get from the Noctilux is just really incredible.
it's special. Yeah. Is this on a SL camera or on an M?
This
Do
is
you
on the
recall?
M10R.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you know, usually that's the one that's in the car with me if I'm going for a
Okay.
drive.
Easy to pack.
Exactly. Yeah. This was a commercial shoot for Honda, and they wanted a seasonal photo of a young family enjoying some time at a pumpkin patch.
All right.
So
They
this is
got it.
this was so literally all I all I used for this shoot, even though I brought more gear, was the SL2 and the 50 SL Summilux 1.4.
Oh, awesome.
And the thing that's amazing about that lens, I find, is that 1.4, it's like an Oppo lens. I mean, you have plenty of sharpness and resolution. You never have to worry about being wide open with that lens. People say, oh, it's a little bit slower to focus and whatever. And I'm like, you know what?
Yeah,
It works for
it's
me.
it's driving a lot of weight on those lens elements.
Yeah.
I wanted to let people know that we have an upcoming workshop in New York on August 17th, I believe. I hope I have the date
Yes.
right.
Yep.
And that's going to be at the New York City meatpacking store, the new Leica store. So we're going to be out in front of the store, in the store for some classroom time. I'll be there to help out as well. I'll bring some gear with me. We'll have all kinds of fun.
Yep. That should be a lot of fun. We'll have some cars, and yeah, it should be great.
Any other tips you can talk about right now without giving away the workshop? Tips for car photography? We don't want to give away the whole thing.
I think that with car photography, you're having a relationship with the vehicle. So you're trying to tell a story, you're trying to, animate something that's inanimate.
Hmm.
So whether it's, the focal length, the camera angle, panning to add some motion, shallow depth of field, so you're isolating something. Those are things that I like to employ to kind of, tell more of a story or kind of make something a little bit more interesting.
Right.
Um, and I feel like if you kind of think outside of the box, instead of just seeing what's straight in front of you and try a few different other things, you often can surprise yourself with the amount of options that you didn't even realize you had going into it.
You've got a lot of visual variety in a lot of these images. You've got some close-up stuff, you've got some far shots, you've got some wide shots like this is. This is a Q, maybe?
Yeah, this was a cue. And
Oh, cool.
again, it's like everyday carry type of thing. If I'm just going out to dinner, I'll just, it'll just be on my body. It's funny. It's like I have some friends that are photographers and they're like, you know what? If it's not a job, I'm not carrying my camera. And for me, I'm just like a compulsive photographer. It's like I love having a photographer, and I love having a camera with me. And especially if you're walking around New York City, it's like, how can you not? Um, why should the gear be sitting at home in a bag when it could be
Yeah,
out
right. Yeah,
making pictures? And I feel like it's good exercise too. It's
you're
like
going to
you're
run across this all
constantly.
the time. Exactly.
Exactly. Yeah.
This is a panning shot, so you're at a slow shutter speed of what, a 13th of a second or somewhere thereabouts, or
Probably something like that, maybe like F11 or so, and whatever the native ISO is. Um, just, and it's a quick thing,
yeah.
location, obviously using the lines that were in the crosswalk,
Oh, now we got
and
into some more
background.
and background. Absolutely.
Right.
Now we got into some more commercial stuff. What's this all about?
This was a shoot I did for eBay Motors. There was a bunch of influencers. This is Tavarish. This is Grind Hard Plumbing next to him. And basically, I had to set up a photography studio inside the Classic Car Club and photograph 4 cars and the parts that they use to kind of customize their cars while they were building the parts wall behind us, right before the eBay Motors auto parts show. And
Are
we
any of
lit
your own lights, or is this all like lighting in the venue?
So this is lighting in the venue. This is basically a shot showing you the finished artwork on the kiosk. Each car had their
Oh,
own
right,
kiosk.
right. Here we have a couple
Um,
other slides of the build.
yeah, and that's the car. And this is what it looked like from 25 feet up in the scissor lift where we were photographing. And you can see my man Des over here, he's holding the black side of the V flat to mitigate reflections, because we took a ton of shots and they were composited ultimately to get the final images. But this is what it looked like, before it was retouched. So lots of stuff going on, lots of
Right.
extraneous things.
There's your reflection mitigator.
Oh yeah. I mean, these guys, they ran around like, I mean, they hustled. It was incredible. It was an incredible team. There's like 36 people on this shoot. Because we had to build something from nothing and then we had to get it out of there.
What is a change in automotive photography in recent years with, let's say, with CGI coming on, and uh, what they can do now, what they used to do on 8x10 film, they're not doing that anymore.
Are you asking a question or are you making a
Yeah,
comment?
yeah. What's kind of in your mind changed in the world of car photography commercially?
I mean, I just think that, I think recently like BMW put out something on their social media and it was like one of their cars with like the most ridiculous artificial background. And I think for those kinds of things, when brands are looking, and I'm not trying to get down on BMW, I'm totally a fan of the brand, but I don't love it when you see a brand cutting corners where instead of like actually taking the vehicle to a location, they're just like, okay, we'll take a shot of the vehicle and then we'll put it against a rendering of a background. And when it's artificial and it's like not meant to be like corny or whatever, it just, it's like kind of like, and you realize like that should have been artwork. I guess
Right.
AI might become artwork, and I know that there's AI artists out there. I think I'm more old school, and I kind of believe that the images should be kind of natively created. And that's one of the things that I also believe in is that I try not to shoot for the edit. I want to try to get things right in the camera.
There we go. Yep.
Um, that's one of the things also I love about Leica is that, the files are so good that there's so little one needs to do to the file to get it to look right. You're not wrestling with color. You're not wrestling with resolution. You're not wrestling with contrast and detail. So that's one thing that's really terrific about the sensors and the lenses, obviously.
Yeah, these are beautiful shots too.
Thanks. I think this was the 10R. Maybe this was the M10P. No, I think this was, I don't know. I don't even remember.
Is there a car on the list that you want to photograph that you haven't had a chance to photograph yet?
I mean,
It's
there's
got
so
to be
many
something,
cars.
right?
out there. It's just ridiculous. So, I don't think I could put my finger on any one particular car, but there's a lot of cars I would love to photograph. And I think that also it's not even just the car, it's also the location, being able to shoot cars in, beautiful locations, whether, you're out west in the mountains or, somewhere exotic, like shooting them on the coast of Italy. So anybody out there wanting to fly me to Italy and shoot cars, let me know.
That's right.
Exactly.
Phone's off the hook. It's ready to go.
Exactly. Call me.
What is your Leica story? How did it all come about?
I like a story. Um, I think that it really came about when I originally kind of, like I said, I was Leica curious. Um, and I bought a Leica Q, the original Leica Q. And I think that I originally, when I did that, I had seen somebody with like maybe an M240 and a Summicron, a 50 Cron, a 50 Lux or something. And I was like, I don't know. I don't know if I'm ready for a rangefinder. So I don't know if I'm ready for the commitment. I don't know how it's going to, fall into my workflow. It doesn't have any kind of tethering capability. It's not, there's only one USB. Like I was still kind of like in that commercial mentality, you know what I mean? And then I was like, you know what? This is a creative tool. This is like another like paintbrush or another paint in your palette. And just a way of kind of creatively expressing yourself. And when I started shooting with the Q, I was like, wow, it kind of unlocked this whole other dimension because I love shooting wide open and having the confidence to be able to shoot wide open and know that you're going to get images that look really good, that are really densely saturated, that have great resolution, even at 24 megapixels. You're really it's almost like it's got bigger pixels or something. Like, and
They
then I
gather
and
more
then
light. Yeah, they gather more
yeah,
light. Yeah, they're bigger photo
letting in
sites.
more
Yeah.
light, exactly, and then the lens, and from there I picked up an M10 and 50 Summilux, and I still have the Summilux, which I don't think I'll probably ever get rid of because it's just one of those go-to lenses.
Mhm.
And it just kind of it went from there, and I started bringing the M10 and the Q onto commercial shoots, and then I was like, I was bringing them out, and I was looking at the shots that I was getting from those cameras and realizing that they were absolutely 100% part of my workflow. And then somewhere around that time, um, I talked to the late John Kreidler, who was an amazing guy, and I think I met him at the original Leica Soho store, and we just hit it off instantly. And I was talking about how, like, yeah, I'm interested in the SL, and he's like, "Oh, I'll send you one." And I was like, "What?"
Yeah, with
And
John. Yeah.
yep, and just like that, like literally, like 2 days later, box shows up. It's an original SL with a 24-90, and I had a commercial shoot scheduled that day, for or an editorial shoot. Sorry. And I was like, I'm just going to bring it. I'd never shot one before. I was completely unfamiliar with the menu system. And honestly, like I was blown away. That was it. I was like, okay, I have to have one of these things.
Yeah, not bad, huh? Yeah, it does a pretty good job.
So all of a sudden I went from like being Leica curious with like a Leica Q to a Leica Q and an M10 and a Summilux, and now an SL and a 20, it just kind of like built from there.
Yep.
And I realized that commercially, um, there was almost nothing that I couldn't do. And that kind of was how things began.
Did your passion for working with cars lead to things you didn't expect, like commercial work? Did your personal work kind of fuel itself into the commercial world, or?
I think so. I mean, I think that as a photographer, it's always good to create personal work. It doesn't mean you have to share everything that you create. I mean, it's
Right.
like being a musician. It's like if you sat around listening to like a band rehearsing or a musician rehearsing all day long, it would drive you nuts. It's like all of us have been to a sound check where you hear like the bass drum and like the guitars, whang, scream, like
Yeah.
okay, unless you're Eddie Van Halen, like I don't necessarily need to hear somebody like wailing around on a guitar. It's the same kind of thing. It's like you need to hone your chops and challenging yourself to, whether it's shooting your friend's car, your friend with their car, just doing portraits. Not everything has to have a commercial leaning. And a lot of your work you can inform a lot of your work professionally with your personal work. I'm going to
Do you
do some
have a
right now.
preview of what the one-day workshop might look like that we're doing in New York? That we can tease some people with. We only have a couple of spots left, folks. So we have, I think, two spots left in the workshop.
So my thing about doing workshops, and I absolutely love doing workshops because, I'm not one of those people that like feels like, your secret should be hidden in a black box and nobody should know what you're doing. I've had a YouTube channel. I've done workshops like around the country. I've done some of them in Europe. And my feeling is that I am somebody who learns by doing. So I also want to encourage the folks in our workshop to actually get out and shoot with their cameras and create work. And the idea is to really kind of take people from where they're at when they arrive and help to encourage them to try new things and push themselves so that at the end of the day, they've unlocked, parts of themselves artistically that they might not have either felt that they were allowed to tap into, or maybe they were just, shy about getting into those areas. And I'd love to be able to kind of allow people to instill more confidence in their shooting and also try out maybe some techniques and some equipment that they never really had the chance to work
Okay,
with.
right. And we're going to have some gear at the workshop too that people can latch onto and borrow. We'll be bringing some different cameras and lenses and things maybe you haven't tried before. You don't have to be a Leica owner to attend these workshops, but there's always something you can try. Try your camera, try one of ours, and see what you think. Take the files home and look at them, and that's the best thing you can do.
Yeah, I think that when the SL2 launched, I went to the SL2 launch party at the Leica store in Soho, and we all got a chance to shoot it a bit, and it was tethered, and we all got the files. And like again, I took the files home, and I'm like, well, I guess that's it for the SL1 or the SL601. Now,
Dang it! Yeah.
I
What
get.
I look at that for? Yeah,
But the truth is that the evolution, was there, and I feel like
agreed.
for a lot of people that look, you don't have to have a Leica to shoot the workshop. You can bring any camera that you want. That's
Sure,
fine.
absolutely. Yeah,
And if you do have a Leica and there's things you haven't unlocked with it, hopefully we can find those things.
right.
And if you're curious about gear, we want you to try out other gear. I mean, why not? This is your opportunity to put gear in your hands that you might not normally, pick up.
Exactly. If you had like one desert island body and lens combo, what might that be? If you had, let's say, an unending supply of film and or unending supply of batteries and cards.
Well, this is getting ridiculous. I mean, first of all, how am I going to get distilled water on a desert island?
Ah,
Um,
processing. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Um,
gotta
I
build a
mean, look,
still.
honestly, like I feel like, having the Noctilux and the M10R and the MP and the Summilux, like I'm pretty happy with the gear that I have. I'm not like searching around like wishing and lusting for other things. Of course, it would be great to have, a 35 lux, a 24 lux. I mean, there's, 75 lux, whatever.
Yeah,
But I feel like, I love the 50 millimeter focal length. And I feel like I'm pretty good with gear right now. I also feel that too much gear, too many options can overcomplicate the process. Um, I think that when you go out on a shoot, maybe it's a personal shoot or whatever, and you've got too many too many options in your bag, it kind of gets in the way of just seeing the world in a
yeah.
certain.
Yeah, we talked about this, you and I, the other day. Just, take one camera, one lens, and learn that combo.
I'm a huge believer in that philosophy, especially
I think
when you're.
we gotta show everybody that MP of yours. We
Oh yeah.
gotta give it the spotlight for a moment.
this this little guy right here.
Beautiful. Yeah, there it is.
Yeah. And this, this goes everywhere with me. I'm not overly precious with it. I mean, yes, I treat it well,
Sure.
but it's the same thing, with the black paint M10R. It's like, I know that there's people that are collectors and they don't want scratches and dings, and I don't. For me, it's like I buy the gear to use the gear. I'm not really,
Scratch is going to happen. A ding's going to happen once in a while.
yeah,
I like them to be my scratches and dings, as you probably do yours too.
yes. Yeah, the MP, I will say that this was owned by friend of mine, and this was zhuzhed. So it's got a little bit more wear than it would have normally had, but there was an opportunity for me to take it off their hands, and I've never looked back. I couldn't be happier. I love it.
Yep, this has really been great, Adam. Appreciate it. Thanks for doing
Yeah.
this program with us. This is
Oh,
an awesome time to just sit and chat.
well, thanks so much, Ray. I really appreciate your time and that wonderful introduction. And I'm super stoked for the workshop. I'm really looking forward
Yeah,
to
it's
it.
gonna be fun. Yeah, definitely. Everybody stay in touch with us. We'll have a slide here, I think, in a minute of Instagram handles for Adam and myself, and like a camera. We have a program coming up in August, so stay tuned for that. Keep looking for that. And thank you very much. And we'll see you at the next Leica Conversation.